Hello everyone, how's it going? I'm Bushcraft Sussex. Just want to tell you a story today. I think this is one of the most important things you should do when you're camping, wild camping, whether you've got permission or not, wherever you go. If you're in a woodland site, the first thing you should do when you turn up is look up and make sure there's no standing deadwood, no big oak branches overhanging you. If you're in a beech forest, be careful, because beech trees are renowned for dropping their limbs randomly. They can just drop them whenever. And a fair sized tree, lump of tree, branch will take you out. I've seen small tree branches dig into the ground about a foot, so you need to keep an eye out. So when you turn up to a site, turn up, survey the area, make sure it's a nice area for you, you've got plenty of cover, you're not disturbing anyone, and then look up. Look at the trees around you. Is there any standing deadwood? Are there any big widowmakers hanging off of oak trees or something like that? Because when the wind picks up, if the wind picks up at night, one of those could come crashing down and completely ruin your day. Now, a few years back, probably about 6 years ago now, me and a load of friends were working on a site, and my friend and his missus were building this shed. I was in the firing range and I was getting rid of a silver birch root that was in the way of people shooting. They kept tripping over it, so it's not a good thing to have, obviously, when you're out shooting. And next to where this shed was, there was this huge standing deadwood pine tree, and it was massive. I mean, it must have been, I don't know, probably about 1.5 feet deep, round. It was a big tree. You could barely get your arms around it. It was a massive tree, and it was a very windy, very wet day. It was absolutely soaking. We were going to go home soon because it was that bad. But I'll just finish. I've got a rebar. I'm trying to pull this root out, and it was probably about 20 foot away from me, this big tree. And I was sitting there digging away, and then suddenly I heard this crack. The noise that a tree makes when it's going to fall over. I screamed, "Get out of the way, tree!" But it wasn't. I was too late, basically. And what happened is the tree landed on top of my friend and his missus. Luckily enough, his missus was in the shed, and she was standing. I'll use a spoon for this. She was standing here like this, and this is the shed wall. And the tree struck and blindsided the side of the shed. And as I shouted, "Careful, tree!" she put her hands over her head. Her hands were black with bruises. It smashed her hands to pieces. But what happened was the shed went like that as it got hit and threw her backwards. So luckily enough, she was injured, but she didn't really hurt herself or get killed. Now, the main bulk of the tree, my friend was standing there, and the tree come crushing down on top of him, squashed him down into the ground, basically. He broke his back, he broke his leg in 5 places, he chipped all the corners off his kneecaps, he had blood pouring out of his mouth. We all panicked. We ran over. My mate Chris was like, "We need to lift this tree off of him." I was like, "You need to stop first, because there might be a branch impaling him. As soon as you pull it off, you might unplug a wound, and then that would be game over. We need to make sure he's okay." So we checked him over. There was nothing sticking out of him, and we tried to move this tree. We managed to roll it probably about 3 centimeters, and it was just enough for him to get out. Luckily enough, the ground was soft, and it sort of pushed the ground down with him, so he managed to sort of scuffle out. He stood up, he took 3 steps, and then just collapsed on the floor. Now what we did is we ripped down the gazebo. I took off my coat, put it over him, took off my hoodie, put it over him. We put the gazebo on top of him, put him in the recovery position, and phoned for an ambulance. Now, we were in the middle of nowhere, and the ambulance was struggling to work out where we were. Even though we had an address, it was a really hard place to find, because you had to drive up a track and all this sort of stuff. So I just said, "I'm going to go and find someone on the road." So I sprinted out, just in a vest, absolutely lashing down. I think it was like November, December. And I come running out of the woods, and there was a woman in a 4x4 driving down the road. And I must have looked like like some scary hillbilly that just come pouring out the woods. And I ran over to her, excuse me, and flagged down her car. She stopped and opened her window about that much, bless her. I said, "Excuse me, my friend's just been crushed by a tree. Do you live round here by any chance? Because we need someone to help direct an ambulance. If you could phone an ambulance for us and tell them that you're with the people that have been hit by a tree, and could you help direct them here? Because we don't know the area at all, and if you live here, you'll have a better idea of it." And she was like, she was very sort of happy. She was like, "Get in, it's raining." So I jumped in the front of a Land Rover. We turned round, we drove back to the entrance. She said, "I'll call an ambulance and I'll wait here by the entrance of the woods." So when they turn up, I can direct them down. I went and got her a radio. She gave me a load of blankets. We made sure Ray was all right. Within about 20 minutes, probably the longest 20 minutes of my life waiting for this thing, because my mate's sitting there, you know, in a right old state. The ambulance turned up with the police and the fire brigade and everything like that. You know, didn't really need the police there, but they sectioned off the area, and they got Ray and stuck him in an ambulance and took him away. And after a year or so, he's absolutely fine again, and he can walk and he's doing normal things. But it just presses on the point that you should keep an eye out for these things. Keep an eye out for a standing deadwood, for limbs that are going to drop off, because it could completely smash you to pieces, or even worse. And excuse me, I think it's a very, very important thing to do when you get to a camp, is to just have a quick look up, and if there's anything that you think might fall or anything that looks dodgy, move your camp. Even if you set up, just move your camp, because it's not worth it. Thanks for listening to my story, and I hope this helps some people.